I was 32, a senior financial analyst, and for 6 years I had treated one blue leather savings binder like it was made of glass. Every quarterly statement for my $145,000 investment account lived inside it, arranged by date with handwritten notes in the margins. My grandfather Henry had spent countless Sunday afternoons teaching me how to build that account one disciplined deposit at a time. He used to tap the binder and say, "Paper remembers what people conveniently forget." At exactly 7:42 p.m. on a Thursday, my phone buzzed with a family group notification that shattered far more than a financial plan. 48 hours later, that same blue binder rested untouched on my dining table while my mother stood outside my front door, staring at it through the narrow glass panel as if it belonged to someone she'd never met. Here's what she never understood about that weekend, and about the quiet habits that had built both my savings and my boundaries. Because money wasn't really what this story was about. Growing up in our family, nothing was ever divided equally. It was measured according to an invisible ranking everyone understood without admitting it existed. The blue binder became my private reminder that some things could exist outside that ranking. Every time I filed another statement inside it, I felt like I was building a small corner of life that nobody else's opinions could rearrange. My younger sister, Emma, was 28 and effortlessly charming. If she forgot birthdays, someone laughed. If she quit another job after 3 months, someone explained she just hadn't found her passion yet. Whenever she needed help, the family gathered like it was an emergency drill. Mom always repeated the same sentence whenever anyone questioned it. "Family shares everything." She said it so often it stopped sounding like kindness and started sounding like policy. Grandpa Henry never argued with her directly. Instead, every Christmas he handed me a fresh pack of document sleeves for the binder. "Keep your records," he'd whisper with a wink. At the time, I thought he simply admired organization. Years later I realized he had been teaching me something much larger. The uncomfortable truth is that I helped normalize our family system. When Emma borrowed my car without asking, I told myself it wasn't worth mentioning. When Mom volunteered my weekends to help Emma move apartments, 3 different apartments in 4 years, I canceled my own plans without complaint. When relatives praised Emma for ideas I had quietly suggested weeks earlier, I smiled instead of correcting them. Every silence became another brick supporting a structure that eventually landed on top of me. Still, by the beginning of October, I believed this time would be different. I had spoken with Mom 3 separate times about my investment account after Grandpa's estate paperwork was finalized. The account was legally mine. The inheritance documents listed only my name. Even our financial advisor, Mr. Collins, had confirmed everything during a meeting where Mom happened to be present. Afterward, I followed up with an email summarizing the discussion. Mom replied with 2 simple words. "Looks good." I printed that email and slipped it into the front pocket of the blue binder. I wasn't taking chances. A week later, while we cleaned up after Sunday dinner, I casually asked again. "You remember the account stays exactly as Grandpa intended?" She nodded without looking up from the dishes. "Of course." Then she smiled with that familiar expression I'd learned to ignore. "Family shares everything." I remember feeling a brief flicker of unease before pushing it aside. After all, we had the paperwork. We had witnesses. We had everything in writing. I honestly believed that would be enough. At 7:42 p.m. on Thursday, while I was reviewing quarterly reports at my kitchen table, the Harper family group chat lit up. Mom had sent a single message. "Good news. We included your sister in your $145,000 account. Family shares everything." Below it was a smiling selfie of her and Emma outside the bank. For a full 10 seconds, I couldn't process the words. Then another notification appeared. Emma had replied with 3 heart emojis and, "Love you, Mom." The blue leather binder was sitting open beside my laptop, displaying the latest statement with my name printed neatly across the top. Months of careful budgeting, overtime bonuses, and Grandpa Henry's inheritance were lying in front of me in black and white. On my phone, they had just become ours. I immediately called Mom. She answered on the second ring as though she'd been expecting me. "Why would you do this?" "Oh, don't sound so dramatic," she said calmly. "Family shares everything." My account wasn't meant to be shared. It is now. Emma needs stability more than you do. You'll earn more money. That sentence stayed with me longer than the call itself. When I finally hung up, the room felt strangely quiet. The ticking wall clock sounded louder than my own breathing. I looked at Grandpa's handwriting on the first page inside the binder. Paper remembers what people conveniently forget. For the first time, I understood exactly what he had meant. Emma didn't cry. That somehow hurt more. She called me later that evening and spoke in the soft, apologetic voice people use when they hope kindness will erase responsibility. I didn't ask Mom to do it, she said. But you didn't stop her. A long silence followed. Finally, she answered, I figured, maybe this is just how families work. Not angry. Not defensive. Just resigned. After we ended the call, memories started lining up in my mind like receipts I had never bothered to total. Emma receiving my old college savings after changing majors twice. Mom asking me to pay for holiday dinners because I was better with money. My promotion celebration becoming Emma's engagement announcement halfway through dessert. The time my birthday gift quietly disappeared because Emma needed help covering rent. Every incident had seemed too small to challenge. Together they formed a pattern I could no longer pretend not to see. The hardest realization wasn't that Mom had crossed another line. It was that I had spent years moving the line for her. I wasn't only the person being hurt. I had become one of the people keeping the system alive by never objecting. The guilt settled heavier than the betrayal. The next morning, I called my Aunt Linda first. She sighed before I even finished explaining. Honey, it's only money. Don't let this divide the family. Only money. $145,000. 6 years of disciplined saving. Grandpa's final gift. Reduced to 2 words. After hanging up, I called my cousin Daniel. He laughed awkwardly. You know how your mom is. Just let it go. She'll calm down. That familiar sentence again. Don't make it a thing. By lunchtime, I almost believed I was overreacting. Then my phone rang one more time. It was Mr. Collins, our financial advisor. His voice was unusually firm. Claire, I've reviewed everything. What happened shouldn't have happened the way you described it. I closed my eyes. Finally, someone wasn't asking me to stay quiet. He paused before adding the words I hadn't realized I needed to hear. You are not being unreasonable. Protect what's legally yours before you protect anyone's opinion of you. For the first time in 24 hours. I felt like I had permission to stop apologizing for something I hadn't done. I didn't call a lawyer first. I called Mom. Not because I thought she would suddenly understand, but because I wanted to know I had exhausted every reasonable option before taking the next step. I don't want to fight, I said. Let's fix this quietly. My proposal was simple. Remove Emma from any claim connected to the account. If she genuinely needed help, I would personally create a separate emergency fund of $15,000 for her. No interest. No repayment schedule. Just one sister helping another. For a few seconds, she said nothing. Then she laughed. Not loudly. Just enough to let me know she believed she had already won. So now you're trying to control your sister with money? No, I answered. I'm trying to protect what Grandpa intended. Her voice hardened immediately. Family shares everything. I've already shared plenty. You owe your sister because you've always had more. I looked at the blue binder lying beside me. For the first time, I realized she wasn't talking about money. She was talking about access. If I surrendered this, there would always be something else. When I didn't answer, Mom delivered her final offer. If you make this legal, don't expect anyone to take your side. She kept going. Your relatives will hear how greedy you've become. Don't expect invitations to Thanksgiving. And don't come crying when your sister wants nothing to do with you. It wasn't a conversation anymore. It was a list of hostages. My reputation. My relationships. My place in the family. I quietly thanked her for making the decision easier. The call ended. I stared at the screen for several minutes before finally setting the phone face down. That afternoon, something inside me shifted. I stopped trying to earn a fair place inside a system designed to keep me unequal. Instead, I started building a life that didn't require their permission. I opened a brand new folder on my computer. Its name was simple. New Traditions. Then I called an attorney recommended by Mr. Collins. Within hours, paperwork was underway to secure the account exactly as Grandpa's estate documents intended. No dramatic courtroom scene. No shouting. Just signatures. Deadlines. Records. Exactly the kind of things Grandpa had always trusted. As I slipped another document into the blue binder, his old sentence echoed in my head. Paper remembers what people conveniently forget. For the first time, those words didn't feel defensive. They felt freeing. A thought came to me so quietly that I almost missed it. Peace isn't something you negotiate with people who profit from your silence. I wrote that sentence on a sticky note and tucked it inside the front cover of the binder. Then I made one more decision. I wasn't going to cancel Thanksgiving. For years, everyone had gathered at Mom's large house because that's how it had always been. This year, I would host dinner at my own home. Anyone was welcome, including Mom. Her place at the table would remain open whether she accepted it or not. Not because she deserved special treatment. Because I refused to become the kind of person who excluded others just to feel powerful. That evening, I drafted a family message. The first version read, "You stole from me. Don't contact me again." I deleted it. The second version was even harsher. "Enjoy choosing Emma. You'll lose me forever." Delete. Neither message sounded like the person Grandpa had spent years helping me become. So I closed my eyes, took a slow breath, and started over. I typed one final message and read it 3 times before pressing send. "Hi, everyone. I'll be hosting Thanksgiving at my home this year on Saturday at 4 p.m. You're all welcome. There won't be any discussions about the investment account during dinner. If you'd like to come in peace, my door will be open." That was it. No accusations. No legal threats. No emotional bargaining. 30 seconds later, Mom replied in the family chat. "Do whatever you want." Nothing more. For the first time in my life, her dismissal didn't feel like a punishment. It felt like permission. 48 hours after her announcement, my dining room was fuller than I expected. Daniel arrived first carrying 2 homemade pies, looking embarrassed for how he'd responded the day before. Aunt Linda quietly hugged me before helping set the table. Neighbors I'd known for years stopped by with bread, flowers, and folding chairs because we'd simply run out of seating. The blue leather binder stayed closed on the bookshelf. It had done its job. Meanwhile, I heard about Thanksgiving at Mom's house through my Uncle Robert, who called later that evening. He didn't criticize anyone. He simply described what he'd seen. The table was beautiful. Perfect china. Crystal glasses. 8 carefully arranged place settings. But people left early. Conversations never settled. Everyone seemed cautious, as though saying the wrong thing might start another argument. It didn't feel like Thanksgiving, he admitted quietly. It felt like a meeting. Back at my house, laughter drifted from the kitchen. Someone burned the dinner rolls. The children turned whipped cream into a competition. Nothing matched. Everything felt alive. Near the end of dinner, Emma stood up holding a small envelope. She looked nervous but determined. "I've signed everything," she said. Inside were the notarized documents removing any claim connected to my account. She placed them beside the blue binder. I never wanted this to begin with. No applause followed. No dramatic speeches. Just relief. Real relief. Winning didn't feel exciting. It felt peaceful. That peace came with a price. I hadn't only challenged a financial decision. I'd challenged the role I'd been assigned since childhood. Some relatives still kept their distance. Certain invitations quietly disappeared. A few people decided I had become difficult. Losing those relationships hurt more than I expected. Later that evening, Uncle Robert stayed behind to help wash dishes. While drying a plate, he spoke almost to himself. "Your mother grew up believing love had to be earned by keeping everyone dependent." He looked at me. "That doesn't excuse what she did." Then he smiled sadly. "But sometimes people repeat the only family language they were ever taught." His words stayed with me. Pain can explain behavior. It cannot authorize it. 3 weeks later, someone knocked on my front door. I saw Mom through the glass. I finished making my tea before answering. For the first time in my life, she waited instead of expecting immediate access. She looked smaller somehow. Less certain. She tried familiar strategies first. I've sacrificed everything for this family. When that didn't move me, she sighed. So you're really choosing money over your mother? I simply invited her inside and waited. Silence did what arguments never had. Eventually she asked, almost in a whisper, "When did I stop being someone you could trust?" That question deserved an honest answer. I told her trust hadn't disappeared in one afternoon. It had been spent a little at a time over many years. Then I gave her my only condition. If you want to rebuild this family, it starts with making things right with Emma, not with me. She looked confused. I explained that Emma had spent her whole life being treated as someone who needed rescuing instead of someone capable of standing on her own. She deserved an apology for that burden as much as I deserved one for the betrayal. Mom asked if Emma would even speak to her. I said I didn't know. A week later, the two of them met alone. What they said belongs to them. I only know they both cried, and when they walked out together, Emma looked lighter than I'd seen her in years. 8 months passed. The first Sunday of every month became our new tradition. Instead of gathering around expectations, we gathered around breakfast. Everyone brought one homemade dish. Everyone cleaned up together. No one kept score. One morning, Mom arrived carrying a brand new blue document binder. Without a word, she handed it to Emma. It wasn't expensive. It wasn't dramatic. But it was the first gift I could remember that came without conditions. Emma smiled and told us she'd opened an investment account of her own with the first promotion she'd ever negotiated for herself. Grandpa's lesson had finally reached both of us. The old blue binder still sits on my bookshelf today. Not because of the money it protected, but because of the boundary it taught me to keep. The strongest families aren't built by sharing everything. They're built by respecting what was never theirs to take.